And old Ralph Denmark comes running down, and he's about to miss the clock. He's not going to make it. He dives from the free throw line like Superman. And he dives, and he tumbles and rolls, and he smashes his shin into the wall, the side of the brick wall, and his bone comes out. And he gets up, and he runs his next 10. I will never forget that.
Hi, I'm Corey Baldwin.
And I'm Dan Searle, and we're back with a new Off the Beaten Path, a podcast for basketball coaches living in obscurity, working in obscurity, and even those who have made it out of obscurity.
And it's a place where for storytelling, for learning, connecting, and food for thought and food for the belly.
Food for the belly, that's for sure. In today's episode, we're joined by Daniel Bowles, Jeffrey Pourchier, Colt McDowell, and Ralph Denmark, 4 members of the 2001-2002 LaGrange College Basketball team. Why are they special? Well, they're off the beaten path, but 8 members of that team continued on and went into coaching hoops at some level or another. So we've got some stories to tell, some stories to hear today from this crew, from 4 of those 8. Guys, welcome. We appreciate you guys joining us today on Off the Beaten Path.
Thank you.
And as you can see, we've got Daniel Bowles hanging out in his living room, still sheltering in place in Georgia. Colt McDowell will hear some stories of Florida basketball underway. The AD at Reinhardt, Mr. Pourchier, is on the golf course raising some funds, and Coach Denmark also camped out at home. So, guys, from all your places around the Southeast, it's time to tell some stories.
All right, so let's get it started. We had Tony Watkins on here previously, who played on your team. Also not here, Mark Eisenhower, who was a women's head coach at one time at LaGrange and at Brookwood when Bowles was, Bowles is the boys coach there. And then one of Bowles' assistants, Dell Lomax, also played on this team. And then we have Wesley Jones, who's a high school coach at one time in Tennessee. So those are the guys that are not here. So let's start with the ones that are here. Let's go right to Coach Lomax. Coach. We'll go down to you, Ralph. Let's start with you. You're in Stockbridge, kind of up south side, neck of my woods, where I'm from, up there in Jonesboro. So let's hear a little bit about your journey and tell us how you got into coaching and how you were able to do it, even though you had teammates like these guys with you, pulling you down, I'm sure. All right, go ahead.
Journey kind of started going back home, Burke County High School, being an assistant there for a couple of years, and then wanted to change the scenery, so moved to Conyers and spent a whole lot of years in Conyers, coaching middle school, starting off assistant and a head coach at middle school level, and then becoming an assistant at Rockdale for 5 years. Had some really good teams over there at Rockdale County High School. Coached some guys who went on to play some really good college basketball. Kevin Ware, who broke his leg over at Louisville. Bernard Thompson down at Florida Coast with Lob City team. A couple other guys who really played some big time, basketball. And then had the opportunity to become a head coach over at Heritage High School, which is also in Conyers. Again, had some, good years there. Was there for 6 years. Had some guys go on and play some Division I basketball. One is at Florida International right now. Had one that went down to Florida FAU, Florida Atlantic. But it's since transferred. But had a couple good runs there, a couple good Final Four finishes my last 2 years. And then this is my first year at Stockbridge. Trying to take a really young team and teach these guys a little basketball and see if we can bring it up to, the level of what we had at some other places.
Let me ask you this. You're maybe the first guy we've had on here that had middle school experience. And I know a lot of times that's probably where the best coaches should go, because that's probably where coaching's needed the most. But most guys don't want to do that because it's a lower level. How was that coaching in middle school? What were some of the good and the bad of those middle school years?
Middle school is a lot different because, you get those guys at a very raw and young age and trying to, train them and teach them a lot. A lot of times you get guys who kind of come up through, you know, the recreation level and have been told that they're really, really good, but they still got a lot of basketball to learn. So, you know, just the age difference there, and, you know, how you got to really dummy things down in order to, you know, get it across to them. You know, it's definitely a challenge. Will say I probably a little bit more fulfilling on the middle school level, but a little bit more enjoyable on the high school level. Because, you know, of course, with those kids, you know, you can get a little bit more across to them and do a lot more kind of expansion of things with the high school kids.
All right. Well, coaching with these four guys right here that you played with, or three guys that you played with right here, which of the four are you surprised got into coaching? And that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, but does it surprise you more that Colt or Pourchier or Bowles actually got into the coaching world?
I would want to say Porsche, because, you know, Porsche doesn't like to deal with people a whole lot. But you know, the thing about Porsche, I could definitely see him on the college level. Like I can see that being more of his thing than, you know, maybe dealing with high school kids. But, you know, Porsche is gonna pretty much tell it how it is. So you know, a lot of high school kids might not be able to take that too well.
He may not fit in that middle school role that you're talking about.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
I think I would
Bringing those
pay
young
to see
kids
that,
along.
actually. All right, Porsche, we're gonna go over to you now. You got a minute over there before you tee off again?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready, guys. Ralph, I appreciate that comment, man. Yeah, I usually shot it straight with people. Many people didn't like me on the court, but off the court, they thought I was a pretty good dude, hopefully. So, but yeah. So my background started graduating from LaGrange and went to Southern Poly in Marietta, SPSU, and was there from 03 to 05. The first year I was there, I was actually just a volunteer assistant. And I was working on getting my MBA. Not a lot of people know that. And then the assistant that was there, Drew Meister, left. He went up to Ohio, and Coach Helfer that was there hired me on as the assistant. So that was my really first, you know, paying job as a college coach, was after I put work in for a year. I was always told, if you want to get in college coaching, you basically have to put work in for a year, maybe for free, and not make much money. And so that's kind of what I did. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that for a year and live with two guys. I actually roomed with Daniel Bowles and Terry Sapnicki, another guy, so we all kind of chipped in and slummed it for about a year to get that going. And then so I was there for volunteer. And then the next year I was the assistant. We had a pretty good team. We were ranked #1 in the country at one point, which was the first time in Southern Poly's history. And then after that, Mike Helper left and got the job at Valdosta. And he gave me a call and asked if I wanted to come down there with him to be the assistant. And so I made that trek in 05 down there to be the assistant for 2 years. And what was crazy is I hadn't finished my MBA yet. So I had to make that decision of, do I want to finish my MBA and stay at Poly, or do I want to go to Valdosta? And I worked it out. Luckily, Southern Poly was nice enough to let me basically turn everything to online. I had to go to class once every 2 weeks. But everything else was done online because I had 1 year left. So that was very fortunate that happened. It gave me the freedom to go down to Valdosta and do that. So I was down at Valdosta State for 2 years, working under Helfer. And probably, I think at that time, 90% of our pay came from teaching at Valdosta. So I had to teach about 12 hours a year. And then you coach, obviously, on the side. 10% of your money basically came from coaching, but the 90% came from the kinesiology department. And we were well aware of, you don't miss class, you teach your classes. So you go out recruiting to these junior college games and things like that, and you got to get back to campus because you teach class at 8 a.m. the next day. So that's something that was, you know, you learn to deal with things like that. And then after those 2 years, I ended up going, fortunate enough that Bill Popp, the athletic director up at Reinhardt University, hired me at 28 years old to lead the Reinhardt College at the time. Their basketball team was a 4-year school, and they were in the SSAC at the time. In my second year there, we started transitioning. We left the SSAC and went to AAC, which was a much better conference for a small Methodist private school that only gave about 5 scholarships. So we dropped down to the NAI Division II level, which the max was 6, compared to 11 at the NAI Division I level. So I was coaching there for 7 years. I was there, had some good teams, some good players, and had a kid transfer from Clayton, Will. Corey, I don't know if you remember Will or not. Yep. And
The coach Will at Truett McConnell Junior College.
oh, did you? Okay. He transferred from Clayton for us and gave us a good run that 1 year. And then I was fortunate enough to after 7 years to get a call from the athletic director at Southern Poly, asked if I wanted to come back and be the head coach there. And it was an interesting conversation because it was more of a let's clean this program up kind of perception, because it had been through some rough patches the 2 years before that. So it was like, hey, we need you to come in here and do it the right way, and not by no means am I saying it was done the wrong way, but just clean some things up internally that were going on. And so I went there for 2 years, and then the bottom fell out. Southern Poly decided to, or the university system decided to merge Kennesaw State and Southern Poly together. And once those two were merged together, they did away with athletics for Southern Poly. So I'm sitting there going into that. I'll never forget that conversation with the AD came in. We were going to play our first game that year, and he came in and said, hey, we just got the news that we're merging with Kennesaw. And I'm like, oh, what does that mean? He's like, nobody knows. This could be your last year coaching here, our athletics and all those things. So it's kind of an eye-opening thing. And to try to tell your team after that game that, hey, the news is about to come out on the news that we're merging with Kennesaw and we might not have a program next year, wasn't an easy thing to deal with those student athletes that either came there for 1 year or 2 years or were freshmen, and try to tell them to basically, hey, we're treating this like a junior college. Unfortunately, now you're going to end up going somewhere else, and those kind of things. So I was looking for jobs. And at this point in my career, I really realized I wanted to get into the administration. That was kind of my goal. Getting into coaching to get into administration was my goal long term. I figured that was the best avenue for me to get in. So I got in. Coach Pop at Reinhardt, the athletic director, gave me a call back. And I've been talking to him all along. Reinhardt and Southern Poly are probably only about 45 minutes away from each other. So we kept in contact. It's all about relationships. And I just said, hey, we're merging with Kennesaw. And he was a graduate of Kennesaw, played baseball there, so he knew a little bit about it. And I just said, hey, anything you hear, please let me know. And he's like, I'll see what I can think of and stuff like that. I kind of told him I want to get administration. And he called me about a month later and said, hey, we're going to start a new position here, assistant athletic director for development. We've never had it. Would you like to do it? I jumped all over it. There was no question about it. I like going out. Contrary to belief, I do like going to talk to people, maybe not middle school kids and things like that, but I do like going out talking to people that want to donate and for a good cause, for student athletes and things like that. So I went and basically did that job for 2 years. I was the assistant athletic director for development and raised a bunch of money for 2 years. And that third year, I got promoted to the associate athletic director for internal. Coach Pop, who's our athletic director now, he basically got named the vice president of athletics. So they moved me to kind of he went to the more of the internal and raising money, and I went to taking over the whole inside operation.
We hear everybody's story. It all connects. You were talking about teaching at Valdosta, and you have to go to class. All these high school coaches around you aren't feeling sorry for you in those moments. They're going to class every single day. And let's catch up with one of those, your former roommate, Daniel Bowles. Tell us your track after dominating the basketball courts at LaGrange, right?
Yeah, it's don't pull the statistics, but we'll go with that. You know, it's crazy just the different ways we get into it. I was finishing up at LaGrange. I actually got accepted to law school. I was going to Stetson University Law School. Fired up about it. Was ready to roll. Paid my deposit. Did all that sort of stuff. And then the guy that we played for, Joe Cambron, he didn't retire. He took a high school job in Ohio. So they promoted our assistant, Warren Haynes, to get the head job. So he needed a graduate assistant. So he asked me if I wanted to stick around, get my master's paid for a grand total of $4,000 a year. You know, and just kind of like this, you know,
Right. Law school.
I know I said, okay, it's law school or it's $4,000 a year. And I asked him, I'm like, Coach, can they at least like pay for my meals or something? $4,000 is nothing. Well, school came back. They said, oh, if you want some meal plan, we'll take it out of the basketball budget. So you know, so the things you do to get into coaching. So worked that year. It was a different kind of year.
Coach Bowles, I'm going to jump in and cut off your sequence here. How hard was that decision? You know, Corey jumped in and said law school or $4,000 for coaching. Did you think about it twice? Did you have an argument with parents, or was it simple and easy? I'm doing this.
So the hard part was I tried to defer my enrollment to law school. I tried to say, hey guys, I've got an opportunity to get a free master's. The program was it was summer, school year, summer. So it was only going to be a year. I said, can I just defer for a year. And they would only let me defer a semester. So I basically had to come out and say, all right, look, I'm not going to do it. Kind of had to tell my parents, say, look, after a year, I'll get a free master's. If coaching's not what I want to do, then hey, law school's still on the table. But I can't remember the test it took to get into law school, but my scores were still good, so I could, try to get in somewhere the next year. But it was a tough decision. But I think I just wanted to give it a shot. Both my parents were teachers, so I kind of said, let's just try and see what happens. So that was kind of, it was a tough choice, but at the end of the day, it was kind of, it was something I wanted to try and I wanted to do. So it was an awkward year because Coach Pourchier had actually torn his ACL our sophomore year, so he redshirted. So he was a redshirt senior on that team. So I'm sitting here as the graduate assistant, and we got Pourchier and probably 6 or 7 other guys that we had played with that were still on the team. So I was kind of in limbo of just a weird position where, I was an assistant coach. I didn't have a lot of authority, but you were still a coach, and all the players were your buddies. You probably had a better relationship with the players than the coaches just because they were your guys. So I did it for a year. At the end of that year, it was kind of, that relationship was kind of stressful to me, just with having all those guys and trying to coach them and do that. So same deal, I get a call from Southern Poly. Drew Meister, who was an assistant that probably recruited most of us to LaGrange. He had gotten on at Southern Poly, and he asked, hey, come up work camp. Would like to kind of talk to you, whatever. So I go up there, and they convinced me to come up there and be a volunteer assistant. I was in the same boat as Pourchier. I had not finished my master's. I still had to do my student teaching. And somehow they got it worked out where I was able to kind of be a dual student between Georgia State and LaGrange. And I finished my student teaching at Pope High School in Marietta while coaching at Southern Poly. So stayed there for 2 years. Same year as Pourchier was there. Really good 2 years, went 32-4 that second year, went to the national tournament twice. Our head coach gets the Valdosta State job. I've already finished now. I've got my master's. I'm certified to be a teacher. So I move into high school. I go work at Chattahoochee High School up in Alpharetta for Duke Mullis. I had gotten to know Duke that year because I recruited 2 of his players and had watched them play and was very impressed, and really good school, get the job there. So I worked with Duke for a year. During that year, it was kind of, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I'll be honest, I thought that coaching high school is easy. I've been a college assistant. I've been around all these guys that won a lot of games, man. I'm ready to be a head coach. In late June, early July, the South Cobb job is open. They had their coach had left. He had just been to an Elite Eight. He leaves to take another job. They can't get a coach. They've had some issues where someone maybe had taken it and backed out, all sorts of stuff. When we get to June, July, all they have is a math opening and an English opening. That was it. And they bring me in, they interview me, and I get that job in July. So I'm 26 years old, taking a job in Georgia's highest classification, team that's just been in the Elite Eight. Man, I think I'm ready. And you guys know, everybody in here knows this. Nothing you do can prepare you to be a head coach except being a head coach. So I look back at that year a lot, and I'm like, man, if I could take that team right now, man, we win 20 games. I think we went 16-10 that first year, lost an overtime game, go state tournament. But it was an eye-opening experience for me just because I realized I had a lot to learn. So head coach South Cobb for 3 years, 2006, 2009. Get a call actually at the very end of that basketball season. Brookwood's principal calls me, said their coach was retiring. They called and asked if I'd be interested. Honestly, I wasn't. I love South Cobb, wanted to stay at South Cobb. But I said, I'll at least go talk to him. Brookwood's where I went to school. It just gives me an opportunity to go back, talk to him. And I've been there now 11 years. So it kind of, guess it worked out. It was kind of wasn't the move I thought. During the time I got hired, it was kind of like right now, they were on a hiring freeze. That's when the first economic downturn. And so They hired me, and we couldn't announce that I was getting hired for over a month. So during that month when they didn't have a coach, the 2 best players transferred away. So the job that I took and then the job that I got were 2 different things. So, but ends up things have worked out well. It's been fun. The 2017 we make it to the Elite Eight. That was the same year, I believe. That's when Colt went to the Final Four, and it was fun watching his journey. That year, we played Ralph twice that year. Ralph kicked our butt twice on that year. That's it was one of our really good teams. I had a kid hit like 10 threes against him at his place, and we still got beat. But it was fun and that's the thing with this whole group is it's fun watching these guys be successful and seeing them kind of go through it too.
And even competing against each other, right? How about that?
Yeah, yep.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, well, let's take it down to to Florida now. Let's talk to Colt. Colt, walk us through your path, and then we'll try to tie everybody together after this. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Corey. Graduated from LaGrange in 2002 and came back to Leesburg, Florida, where I played at. I grew up in the Villages, Florida, retirement community down here. But when I was growing up here, the Villages Charter School didn't exist. So I went to a school about 20 miles south of here called Leesburg High School. Got to play for a really good high school coach who had brought in really good assistant coaches. And one of those assistant coaches he brought in was Chad Keller, who's now at Embry-Riddle. Chad had just finished playing at Flagler my senior year in high school. And him and I, he was our assistant coach, but kind of like Daniel said, his first year coaching high school basketball, he was only 1 year, or just graduated college. Him and I, me being a senior in high school and him just graduating college, definitely never blurred that line of him being my coach, but we became more friends than coach and player. And so when I was getting done with LaGrange, he had Coach Todd had moved on into the college ranks, and Chad had become the head coach at Leesburg. And even during the summers, he would have me back, and I would get to coach the freshman team or the JV team or assist on the varsity at summer team camps and things like that. So I kind of always knew, coming out of college, I was going to go back to Leesburg and work with Chad. And I was able to do that for 2 years as his assistant coach and his freshman coach. We also had another assistant there by the name of Brandon Scott. And Brandon and I became best friends. And when Chad left to go to Embry-Riddle, Brandon got the head job, and I was his assistant for another 3 years. In Brandon's 4th year being the head coach, would have been like 06, 07, Brandon got the opportunity to get a position at Limestone College where he played at. And in that summer, I had taken a volunteer assistant position at Embry-Riddle and was going to work on getting my master's. I was there for about 2 or 3 months during the summer, working camps and things like that. And that's when Brandon got the opportunity. And I decided to interview for the Leesburg head coaching position, and I got it. And I was at Leesburg for 2007 to 2010. Had some pretty good teams while we were there. Had a little bit of a rebuild after we had a group of seniors that graduated, and then we had a couple years where we were rebuilding. But in my last year there in 2010, I think we finished like 17-8 and got to the regional tournament or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But in 2010, probably one of the closest people to me in the world, my older brother Chance, that all these guys know, an absolute nut, but a basketball junkie. He taught me everything I know about basketball, passed away unexpectedly. And kind of lost my passion for teaching, for coaching, really for everything. And I got out of teaching and coaching in 2010 and started selling real estate here in the Villages. Did that from 2010 to 2016. Did it exclusively from 2010 to 2014. In the summer of 2014, the powers that be here in the Villages asked me if I'd help out with the high school basketball team. There'd been some players that had got here that were pretty high level kids, and they needed some help with them. And, I said no 3 times. Finally, I was taken out to lunch, and they brought the kids with them. And I couldn't say no to the kids. So I said, I'll help out over the summer as a volunteer assistant. And I did that. And then, obviously, once I got involved and started coaching, the love for the kids came back and the love for the game came back. And I helped out in 14-15 as an assistant. And then the head coach left, Dave Krakoff, who I work for down here, and he's from the Pittsburgh area, great guy with dribble drive motion, taught me a lot. He left to go be an assistant principal down in South Florida at Stewart at Martin County. And they offered me the head position, and took the head position, and have been very fortunate to coach some really, really good players. We've had a lot of success here in the last 5 years. Had a lot of kids move on to the college level, a lot of kids move on to the D1 level, and we've been to 2 regional finals, and we've won 3 district championships. Every time we get down to the Final Four, though, we got to play a kid like Kevin Knox or U School. We got to play Vernon Carey and Scotty Barnes, and they've kicked our butts both times we've been down there. So hopefully we can get back down there. We got a good group this year, and I'm looking forward to working with them. And we've been pretty fortunate in Florida, and especially in our area, Corona and the COVID. We've been able to phase back into working out and practicing. So it's been good to be back around our guys in the last month.
Nice. That's nice. Well, one of the, I think, neat things of all 4 of you guys after hearing your story is all you guys, kind of seem like went back either home or went back with somebody who helped you, and then kind of went from there to get where you're at now. And all of you are so successful, plus Tony, plus Wesley, plus Mark, plus Dale. I mean, wow, unbelievable. When y'all were playing together, and y'all can all kind of answer this in your own way, what do you think made that LaGrange team produce 8 coaches? I mean, that's kind of obscure, man. So I played on a college team. There was a couple of us got into basketball, but not many. So, after basketball, stayed in it or whatever. So what do you think made 8 guys, get into coaching at some point?
And let's start with the guy on the golf court, golf cart that's got a little moment of pause there. What do you think? Why 8 guys coaching? Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of it has to do with just the passion that we had for playing. I mean, you go to practice every day, and it was a battle. And we weren't always the nicest people on the court to each other, but when we got off the court, it was about building those relationships and things like that, and always just talking. And I think that has a lot to do with it. The fact we always hung out together in the residence halls, dorms, whatever you want to call them, and just spending that time together and talking, and the passion that each of these guys had for coaching and playing, just talking about the philosophies that they think and those kind of things. That was a big deal. I just think it carried a lot of weight on those things. I'm not sure what the other guys think, but we have lots of stories we could get into about off the court stuff, that we had some good times, but we also got in the locker room and we battled, and we learned a lot together. We probably learned a lot of things not to do maybe as coaches. I did. I could tell people that all the time when I was playing at LaGrange. I learned a lot of things I probably wouldn't do if I was the head coach. And things like that. I'm sure we all have coaches that we learn on, like, I would never do that. But, just certain things that I think that we took from that. So
what about you, Denmark? What would you say?
Honestly, I learned a lot from these guys. I came up and I was more of a football player in high school, and basketball was kind of my secondary sport. From where I grew up at, I was tall for where I grew up at. So, I kind of got pushed into basketball, and it was really just a blessing that I got an opportunity to go to college and play basketball. I don't think that I was a good enough basketball player in high school to go to college and play, but it worked out that way. And then, kind of like Pourchier was saying, being around these guys, these guys grew up playing basketball. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Coach Cameron and from Warren, and just getting the feel for being around the game, understanding the game a little bit better, and kind of I tore my ACL I think our junior year, and I had to sit out and kind of watch from the sidelines. I kind of learned a lot as far as the coaching aspect and how to interact and deal with players while I was sitting on the side during that year. But these guys on this call had a lot to do with me going into coaching. They really, because like Pourchier said, off the court, we bonded, we hung out together, we talked basketball. On the court, I consider myself to be a hard-nosed player, and every one of these guys can go toe-to-toe with me any day when we played. So, it was pretty big just, being around this group and coming up with these guys.
Hey, let me chime in there, Ralph. I'll never forget this story. I used to tell it to my guys all the time when I was coaching. We'd be running our 10-10s in preseason conditioning, which was a nightmare. And old Ralph Denmark comes running down, and he's about to miss the clock. He's not going to make it. And he dives from the free throw line like Superman. And he dives, and he tumbles and rolls, and he smashes his shin into the wall, the side of the brick wall, and his bone comes out. And he gets up, and he runs his next 10. I will never forget that. He's like, I got this. I'm like, your bone is hanging out. How do you have this? He's like, I got it, man. Get away from me. And he gets up, and he finished. That's how tough Ralph Denmark is. I'll never forget when he did that day.
Oh, that's awesome right there. I'm glad you shared that one. That might
of course, I was about to bring it up. He rolled over at first, and he looked at his shin, and he's holding it, and he's like, I'm hurt. And we walked over there. He's like, I was like, Ralph, get up, man. We got to finish this. He's like, no, I'm hurt. And we looked at it, and his shin's hanging out, and he looks at it for a minute, and you can see his bone, and he's like, all right, man, I'm gonna get up and finish. And he finished it, man. He was tough as it's funny you say that, Porsche. I use that story with my guys all the time.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
I don't know if you call that tough or stupid.
Go ahead, Colt. You tell us now what you think about all late.
I think those guys have hit on it and touched on it, Corey. I think another thing, is that Coach Cameron and Coach Haynes, the year before when Coach Cameron took that job, the year before he took the job, they were 0-33. Playing NAI Division I against really, really talented teams that had 11 to 12 scholarships. And we were, transitioning to NAI D2 and then, eventually going to be D3. And all of us knew that coming in there. Those guys were there a year before I was. I went to a school in West Virginia my first year and then transferred in. But I think it speaks to Coach Cameron. Basketball-wise, there was a lot of stuff we did that I still use, or maybe even like Jeff said about some things that I learned that I maybe wouldn't do, but I think that's everywhere. I played for one of Florida's legendary coaches, and there's some things I'd taken a lot that I would do and some stuff I wouldn't. But he recruited all of us, and I think he had a certain person, student, and player in mind. And I think we all kind of fit that bill, and he only took the right people, or I should say only the right people made it, because I think we had, a JV team, obviously. And I think when I got there, there was 30 or 40 guys that were competing to be on the varsity. And, Jeff was probably the most talented of all of us on this call. But Ralph and Daniel and I, Jeff knew he was going to be on the varsity, but when we got there, it was questionable. There was guys that were as talented or more talented than us, but we outworked them. And I think all of the guys on this call are workers. And then, I think the guys on this call and the guys that you mentioned, also, we would, Jeff and I got in fights in practice. Me and Matt Dompel went, toe to toe many times in practice. But literally, when we'd walk out, we seemed to get that really well, that, we're going to put our work in the gym. But outside of the gym, we had, I don't know if it was because of LaGrange being a smaller school, and, there was only 1,000 students, and there was 3 fraternities on campus, and, the baseball team and the basketball team, there was no football team. We kind of were our own fraternity, and we had to look out for each other. So, I think we got how important team was, and, I think we were a big part in turning LaGrange around. We didn't have the wins necessarily that Daniel, Ralph, or I would have liked in our senior year. But we came up short in the conference championship our senior year, almost knocking off Maryville. But the next year, Porsche and Dale and Mark Eisenhower and Wesley and all those guys, they were able to, turn it around, have a winning season. And if I remember correctly, I think they won the conference championship that next year. And then obviously, what they're doing there now at the D3 level, going to the national tournament every year, I take pride that we were part of that. And I think, guys like us are, what Coach Cameron wanted, what Coach Haynes wanted. And I think that's probably a lot of why we are back home coaching, is because that's kind of what our DNA was or is.
Right. And you're giving credit to the recruiting, to somebody going out, Coach Cameron, and looking for that type of player, that type of person. Yeah. And that's where you get that passion for the game that Forrest was talking about. Bowles, what do you think? What can you add to this that
I mean,
we haven't heard yet from this group, from this dynamic?
A lot of the same stuff as these guys, but I think the part I would add, and you guys know this, when you're a small college basketball player, you better love it.
That's
You
right.
know, you're not on TV. You're not getting money. You know, most of us, I know, we're taking out loans and working work study to pay for it. So if that's in your DNA, you love basketball. And if you're a guy that loves basketball, you know, it makes sense that you want to keep basketball as part of your life. And I think that's why when you look at us as coaches, that's a big part of it. And I think people don't realize the work it takes. The other thing I'd say with this group especially is, man, I think you got a lot of overachievers right here. You know, me and Ralph are both undersized guys for where we had to play. You know, we're not the most athletic dudes in the world or anything like that. So you got some overachievers. And I always think that those are guys that end up getting into coaching. You know, you look at some of those NBA guys that end up getting into coaching and it doesn't work out because it's hard for them to explain to somebody, you know, hey, just do it. And for us guys that, you know, our whole lives had to fight and claw and scrap to try to get in there and be it. I think that kind of pushed us towards being involved. And you know, we've talked about Coach Cameron on here. He was a first-year head coach.
Yeah.
Coach had come from being an assistant at Embry-Riddle. They were super successful when he was there. So he was fighting and trying to figure out his identity and trying to figure out his coaching philosophy. So for us to learn, you know, I'm the same. You know, me and Jeff played for Eddie Martin in high school. So you go from a guy with 20 years of head coaching experience to a guy who's a brand new head coach. He was learning on the fly like we were. And I've been lucky to get a good relationship with Coach Cameron in the last, 10 years. And it's funny to hear him talk about the same things we're talking about, how, gosh, if I had to do it again, here's some things I would do differently. And I think we all learn from that, you know, for us being young head coaches too.
That's all part of the process, isn't it? Well, you mentioned the passion, you mentioned the love of the game, Bowles. Love to hear from all four of you. How do you transfer that love to your current teams and players? What do you do to instill the love of basketball in your teams now? And let's start with Colt on this one. What are you doing? You've been up and down in life and been through a lot. How do you still have that passion for the game and show the players?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just people hear your actions a lot more than your words, and bringing that passion every day in practice. And I think having that more a healthy perspective about it. When we're gonna when we get in the gym, we're gonna work our rear end off. When we get out, we're gonna do a lot of fun things together. We try to every quarter to do a team meal. I mean, a big team meal like a Thanksgiving dinner, or go do something fun. But just letting the guys know you love them. And I mean, it's the age old, guys don't care what you know until they know that you care about them. And, once they know that, then all the guys I've been able to coach will run through a brick wall for you. So, it's just that transferring of my passion, my energy, just like Ralph and Porsche and Daniel, you're either going to get on board or you're not. It's that simple. Just because we're going to expect a lot from you. We're going to expect you to do a lot. And you're going to expect a certain level of play. And not necessarily based on talent. Everybody's held to the same same standard on the defensive end, rebounding end, and all of that stuff. So I don't know, man. I think it's just being me, and just doing it the only way I know how. Like Daniel said, I had to fight, scrap, and claw for everything I got from the time I was in middle school on. I try to remind guys that I get to coach that have more talent than me, that imagine you with talent, and that's all I'm trying to teach you. So, that's what I do.
Right. Hey, he may have answered it for everybody, but let's go around the room. He talked about you got to show you care and have high expectations. Ralph, how about you? How do you instill that love of the game?
Yeah, I mean, Colt hit on a lot of it, building the relationships with the kids, definitely showing them that you care, because the more they feel like you care, the more that they're going to care. And, just kind of almost treating them like they're your own. I have my own kids, and, definitely love them and try to give them, as much, fatherly supervision and interactions as possible. And, you kind of give a little bit of that to these kids that you have on the court, because, you know, is crazy, but you spend probably more time with those kids on the court than you do with your kids at home. And, you know, a lot of them, at least, you know, the ones that I've dealt with, you know, don't always have, you know, at home people supporting them and loving them and things like that. So you really gotta, you know, you gotta love on them. You gotta, you know, show them that, you know, it's about more than just basketball. I'm not, you know, working with you and dealing with you because of your talent. I'm working and dealing with you because of the person I'm trying to get you to become. So, like I said, it's definitely building those relationships.
There you go. The relationships, the caring. Bowles, how about you? What do you do? And what do you do with the kid who doesn't have as much passion for the game as you do?
Well, I think the one thing I'll say, and I experienced this as a player too, I think there comes a point where some kids, I don't know the right word, where maybe they take basketball for granted. You know, most of our kids have played their whole life. Most of the kids that play for us, they've made the team. It's not like they've been cut or things like that. And I think, especially nowadays with as many games as our kids play, I think there becomes that time where kids will, you know, take basketball for granted. And the thing I always try to get our guys, and this is, you know, me and Ralph probably have a similar thing. You know, I got hurt my junior year as well. I hurt my back, and for my junior and senior year, man, I could barely move. And it was, our coach took me to the doctor. Man, I went to Emory, I went to Houston Clinic. I got shots up and down my back, all to kind of continue playing. And the thing that showed me was that you never know when it's going to end. And being a high school coach, we know the majority of our kids, it's going to end in high school. So it's kind of trying to teach our kids to attack every day like it's your last day. You know, this year I had my starting point guard tore his ACL, starting three-man tore his meniscus. And so those kids lived it. You know, they lived the dang, you know, when it gets taken away from you, you appreciate it so much more. So we just try to instill in them, hey, you know, make every day like it's your last, and just teach them to battle and teach them to enjoy the moments. Like, you know, I think, especially the years I was coaching in college, and you guys know this from just being in coaching, I don't think we enjoyed the wins enough. And I'm not saying you need to be comfortable with it, and like, but you look at it and you say, man, like all these small moments, these are the things that make it big. We got to celebrate different things, and it's, you know, celebrating whether it's a kid taking a charge in practice that's never taken a charge before. Just celebrating small moments so those kids realize, like, man, like it's not the whole fruition of it. It's these little moments. And, you know, if you asked Ralph, Jeff, and Colt, there's not a lot of games I remember from college. I mean, there's a lot of moments. You know, there's a lot of moments, whether it's from practice, games, road trips. And those are the things trying to get our guys to, you know, just to look at and see if, you know, that's why you do this. You do this for the memories. You do this. You know, these are guys who are going to be in your life forever. So that's the kind of part we try to hit on it.
The guy who slid into a brick wall in practice.
Yes.
Opened it. He showed his bone to everybody. Exactly. Hey, Porsche, you're not coaching on the floor right now, but you've coached many years, and you may be instilling a new kind of love, but that love, that passion for basketball, for what you're doing. How do you transfer that?
Yeah, I think to me, coaching the college kids, I recruited kids that, one, obviously they had to be somewhat talented, but two, I wanted to see what their end goal was. Like, you're going to graduate. No matter what we do, we're going to get you graduated here, whether it was at Reinhardt or Southern Poly. And we had a lot of first-generation graduates that no one had graduated in their family. And that was something that I took pride in. When I could get a kid in there that no one in his family ever graduated, and they could come in, have a great career, get their school paid for, and graduate. At graduation, they'd have like 500 people there. Not really, but they'd have like 60, 70 people there, and they would be the loudest in the gym when their name was called. You know, they do that. Nobody clap or say anything until everybody's done. Next thing you know, it's like, yeah, woo, you know, all that's going on. And I took pride in those things and recruiting those kids, not just those kids, but all kids that maybe had a little down, needed some uplift in their life, and for them to get a degree and to have those relationships still is pretty important to me. I still talk to a lot of those guys that I've coached everywhere. Each year I talk to a bunch of them throughout each month and call them and just check on them, see how they're doing. Some of them got kids now and things like that. So it's just, I just think it's about relationships. Everything in life, in my opinion, is about relationships. The more relationships you have, the better off it's going to get you, and the better off your life can be. And stuff like that now, and transitioning to the role that I'm in now, it's like that with my coaches. You know, I look at these coaches, and yeah, we're at Reinhardt and we want to win and we want to do those things, but it doesn't hurt to, hey, if this isn't your end goal, win and go to your end goal. We want you to do that. We're here to support you to get the best opportunity you want. If you want to go coach Division I, we'll come here, win some games. You're making us look good. You're making our program look good, and that's an opportunity for you to go. Then go. We're not going to hold you from that opportunity. So it's a little bit different. I feel like I'm mentoring more coaches now, and overall student athletes. It's still great to see all those student athletes that all of our coaches recruit and get them through tough times and things like that.
I think the relationships, you hit it right there, and it's such a big part of everything. And we do a thing here on this show all the time. We talk about 6 degrees of separation, and we try to tie people in and just show how small the basketball world is. No matter where you are, we can tie you into me and Searle. So I'm gonna do a quick one here. Colt, I signed a kid at Clayton. Well, I coached him. I didn't personally recruit him, but he was on our team, and I coached him for a year. Was Brandon Kelly from Leeds.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so BK was a heck of a player for us. We were number 2 in the country for 10 weeks, and he was one of our players on our team. Bowles, I coached 2 of his guys and recruited 2 of his guys, Colin, who's also now a coach, an assistant now at Reinhardt, was at Andrews.
Reinhardt, yeah.
Yep. So he ties back into Porsche there. And then I coached Khalil, who was Khalil Abdullah, great player for us. Undersized rebounder, tough guy, kind of like you and Denmark both. And then Porsche, he signed 3 of my guys. Will, he mentioned, and LaShawn Davis and Torio Cook were guys.
Yep.
Truett, and he had an assistant that I had at Truett, Tony Campbell. T. Campbell will probably make an appearance on this show at some point. And then now his head basketball coach there was Justin Newton, who was my assistant one time at Waycross. And I can tie into Ralph a little different. I had 2 players I coached at Clayton, Jay Dobbs and his brother Duran, who were Heritage guys. And you said you were down at Burke County, right? That's where you're from?
Yes, sir.
I just signed a kid from there, Rod McBride, and one of my assistants, Trey Hill, is now an assistant at Burke County. So we tie in with everybody real quick right there. I know Searle's got some. Go ahead, Searle. We like doing it.
Hey, the first game I ever coached at the college level, I was coaching an Emory JV team, and it was an away game at LaGrange. And I was first-time head coach, right out of college, had no clue what I was doing. Same age as a couple of the players, like Bowles was saying, GA. And I remember doing a burpee on the sideline after a bad call or a good call or some kind of excitement. But this was way back before your time. This was 1995, 96 season. So we'll take it back a bit. And Ralph, I think I called one of your games on NFHS Network, a semifinal or an Elite 8 game a couple years ago, or your state games. And the Reinhardt connections are all going way back to the time Billy Pop was Oglethorpe baseball guy before he went off to Reinhardt. And then we've mentioned, and I know it's a sad mention, but one of my favorite players I've ever coached in basketball was Quentin Moses.
Great man.
Yes, he really was. Played football at UJ and was an assistant at Reinhardt for football, right? And passed in the house fire. But not to have a sad moment, but anytime I can mention Quentin's name, it's worth it. He's a great person, great guy along the way. And
sure if you ever get up to Reinhardt in our football locker room, they have a little memorial in there for him with his jersey from Georgia and things like that. And so if you ever want to come up, let me know.
That would be great. Thank you for that invite. I need to do that. That would be meaningful. And Corey, as we move forward here, I know Coach McDowell's got practice here coming up in a few minutes, so we can start wrapping things up.
Let's go to this lightning round real fast, okay? We'll do some questions. We'll hit each guy, and then maybe at the very end, we think about it in your head if you want to share one story of the whole group. Maybe we can do that before we get out of here. So we'll go lightning round real quick. Okay, I know you guys have been around a lot. I know E3 and NAI, you playing some rough gyms. Some of them sometimes don't have 2-sided bleachers. Some of them, man, that's the best part of off the beaten path. And I've probably been in a lot of them, so I'm definitely not talking down. I've been in them. I've been in worse probably. Give me the worst gym you coached in or played in. Start with you, Bowles. Go.
Ooh. I'm going to go 2. Worst gym we probably played in, I got to go Parker, their old gym.
The original Bruton Parker.
The
The
original.
barn. The
It
barn.
felt like you were in a chicken coop when you were down in your locker room. And I'd say the craziest place I've ever coached in would have to be when we were at Southern Poly, coaching at Knoxville College. That place was wild, man. Like it was wild. So I'm giving you those two.
All right, go ahead. You Ralph, what you got?
I mean, definitely, I have to agree with Bruton Parker Gym. You know, it's one I think we had to. When you sat, it wasn't really chairs on the sideline. We sat on like the bottom bench, and it was super high or something. It was crazy. But coaching wise, you know, when I was coaching at Rockdale, when I was the assistant there, gym was super small before they built the new one. They got a new nice gym now. It's probably about 6 or 7 years old. But we were in the old gym at first. People standing right there on the side of the court, and it was crazy.
I love it. All right, you Colt, what you got?
Obviously, Bulls stole it. Bruton Parker, their old gym. Even though I have an affinity for old, dirty gyms, I love them. Definitely takes the cake for the worst gym we played in. Probably the craziest environment that any of us ever played in, though, would have had to be at Stillman. Stillman College in Tuscaloosa, is that right? No, it's in Alabama, Tuscaloosa. Craziest place that I've gotten to coach in would probably be going back to my alma mater as a head coach at the Villages, coaching at Leesburg. Leesburg is a quite a intimidating for opposing teams. So that would be my three.
What about you, Porsche?
Yeah, I would say Colt hit it right with Stillman. What he didn't tell you was it was their homecoming, and it was standing room only, and they were standing the lines, out of bound lines. So there was no buffer, and there was literally, I don't know how much time left, 0.8 seconds or a second left, and Colt gets fouled to win the game and goes to shoot free throws, and they're shaking the goal. It's a portable goal, and they're shaking the goal, and the whole goal is shaking. And the ref, I'm like, ref, they're shaking the goals. He's like, shoot the free throws. So Colt shoots, and best free throw shooter we had. Thank God. He makes the first one. I'm like, ref, they're shaking. And he's like, y'all got to get away from the goal. And he makes the second one. We win. We get it the hell out of there, man. That was one of the craziest environments that we had played in as a team, and I'll never forget that story.
I remember what was Coach Jason Williams. He played at Embry Riddle, 6'6", 6'7", huge guy. We're starting to celebrate, and he comes and grabs us. He's like, "Get the hell out of here!" Because I mean, they're on the court ready to fight us, and we didn't. We're just dumb college kids. But yeah, it was they took us out the back door and the whole nine, so it was good.
You were probably ready to fight the whole crowd right there.
Well, we had Ralph Denmark with us, so I wasn't afraid of much.
Oh, you got each other's back, and you still do. That's what's pretty neat about this. Here comes a true lightning round. Give us your favorite player when you were growing up. Who'd you look up to? Who'd you emulate? And what coach you kind of look to right now? Is it a Steve Kerr in the NBA, or is it a D3 coach? Is it a high school coach? Bowles, favorite player growing up? Coach you look up to?
Dang. Favorite player growing up, I love Larry Bird and I love Michael Jordan. They're kind of two different eras almost, but those are the two.
Go ahead,
I think
man.
anybody our age, you got to go Jordan. Coach, and there's so many. There's so many guys that I've looked at and watched, and I think it'd be kind of hard to pick one. So I look at. I know I'm messing you guys up lightning round here, but I've had so many just different coaches that kind of get you.
Who have you learned from recently, or who have you looked at recently as a coach?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Princeton offense stuff this summer, or this whatever this quarantine is. Just a bunch of different movement with University of Richmond and some people like that. Just trying to learn as much as I can.
There you go, Ralph. Favorite basketball player or football player growing up, and coach that you look up to, or learn from?
Favorite basketball player growing up, probably have to say Sean Kemp. Many pounds ago, I like to dunk. So, Rain Man was my guy. And then, as far as coaching, Patino, I love his defensive styles, how he jumps in and out of them. Try to study it. You know, if I ever get the athletes that, you know, be kind of close to what he had, I like to do a lot of what he does defensively.
There you go. That's how you do lightning round bowls.
Oddly enough, my favorite player growing up was Chris Webber, being from Michigan originally. But the fact that I was never going to be 6'9" and athletic, I really like Jason Williams and I really like Allen Iverson. Those were my two guys that I really loved to watch play and tried to emulate as much as I could when I was a player. Coaching-wise, it would have to be Bill Hodges, being in the Villages. You know, he coached Larry Bird at Indiana State. My first year in the Villages, he actually was my assistant coach because he had retired down here, and learned an absolute ton from him. So, Bill Hodges.
He coached my cousin Clint.
Yeah.
Did you know that? He coached my cousin Clint. He coached my cousin Clint Satterfield at Georgia College.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I knew he was at Georgia College. Yeah, he's got. You talking about 6 degrees of separation, man? That guy knows everybody, anywhere, anytime we went somewhere.
Yeah, he's the best. All right, Porsche.
Yeah, my favorite player growing up was Scottie Pippen. Love Scottie Pippen. Then into the Kobe days would be definitely next. And I mean, a lot of the stuff that I took coaching-wise was from Mike Helfer. A lot of that stuff that he did I thought was good. And
All right, well, I always come in with a food question because I'm a big foodie. So I'm going to get you right now. Where's the best place to eat pizza in your mind? I'm going to you, Bowles. Where are you going?
Best place in our area?
Anywhere. Your favorite pizza place. Anywhere in the world. I don't care.
Man, there's a place. I don't know the name of it, so it's kind of ruining it. But on your way to the Keys, there's an unnamed key right before you get to Key West. And it's a little bar, and they got dollar bills all over the walls. And they advertise as having the best pizza in the world. And we stopped there on the way to Key West one time, and it was really good. It was really good. I think it's on unnamed key or whatever that key is right before you get there.
I like
I'm not giving them any business, but they were on one of those diners, drive-ins, and dive shows. The place is legit.
All right. What about you, Ralph?
Hard to name a favorite pizza place. You know, when you got 5 kids, you go for, you know, quality over quantity. Quantity over quality. So we eat a lot of Little Caesars in my house.
I already knew that was coming. All right, Colt, what you got?
I'd say probably Buffalo, New York, Lenova. My wife's from Buffalo area. They got a place there called Lenova Pizza. It's incredible.
Nice. What about you, Porsche?
yeah, I don't really have a place, but any kind of New York style, Jersey style pizza, being a Jersey guy, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Not no Papa John's or anything like that. So
I got you. All right. Hey, Ralph, you'll have to try Rockies in Lake Harbin, in Morrow, not too far from Stockwood. That's my favorite, and it's not that expensive.
I would definitely put it on the list.
Yeah, rough place. Good
Corey and I spent many a lunch and a dinner and another lunch there eating baked rigatoni with meatballs or baked pizzas. Rockies, I love it.
All right, you go, sir. Here you go. What you got? What question you got? We got about 2 more here.
All right. Hey, again, lightning round quick if we can. What is the last book that you read or a book that you recommend for everybody who's listening? Give us your book recommendation, Paul.
I'm going to go, I haven't read in a while, but Rick Majerus, My Life on a Napkin. That was one of my favorite when I was getting into coaching. Dude was out there, man, living in a hotel and all that. But that was nice. You know, as a big guy, you always got to like Rick Majerus. So I love that one.
All right. On the napkin. Ralph.
Honestly, don't do a whole lot of reading, but I did inherit a book of different flex motion from Dave LeBarry. He was our girls basketball coach at Heritage when I was there. And, you know, he gave me that book and, you know, told me to really study it and look at it. And there's a lot of good things in there.
Nice. Colt, how about you? You planning practice and doing some reading?
No, I wrote down that book that Bowles mentioned. If he's reading it, I need to read it. I would say the best book that I've read for coaching, or the best, it would be When the Game Stands Tall. They made it into a movie. I refused to watch the movie because the book is so good. About De La Salle High School out in California. Any coach that wanted to get into coaching or is in coaching that wants to put their players first and learn how to empower players, it would be it changed my coaching career.
Now the rest of us are writing that down. When the game stands tall. Nice.
Yep.
All right. Porsche, how about you? Book.
I'm not a big book reader, so I would say that I don't know if I could even give you a full book that I've read. I'm just not, that's just not me to sit down and read books. I'm more of a short kind of, give me like 4 or 5 things to read. That's about it.
More of a podcast guy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, let me listen. Let me listen.
Like, all right, well, here's the last one before we get out of here. Give us one good story, and this one may take a little more than the lightning round part. One good story about one of the guys in here. You know, we've already heard a great one on Ralph, but what's a story, you know, that kind of comes to mind when you think of your teammate? You go first this time, Porsche. We've had you go last every time. Go first.
Yeah, I don't know if I initially have, I have so many stories, but one thing that always pops out in my head is one day in practice, Coach Cameron came in. He's like, we're halfway through practice, and he's like, go get all the water bottles. And we get all the water bottles, and he dumps all the water bottles on the gym floor. I've never seen a coach do this. He jumped every single water bottle we had on the gym floor, and we had a contest of who could slide the farthest on the gym floor during practice. It was the funniest thing ever, trying to watch people slide.
That was
I
awesome.
love that. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, you go Bowles. You go Bowles this time.
All right, I'm going to stick with the crazy coach stories here because this is something all of us, when you ask us why we're in coaching. So one thing that we would do at practice, and our athletic trainer, man, he hated our coaching staff because he knew we were always going to get hurt. And so he was always pissed when he'd be sitting at practice. So we would do something, and they were called kamikaze suicides. All right, which I know is, probably not socially acceptable. But what it was, you run a suicide, but instead of stepping on every line when you change directions, you had to dive.
Yeah.
So every time, instead of stepping on the free throw line, you dive on the free throw line. Come back, you dive on the baseline.
Yeah.
Half court and back. And I can just remember our trainer sitting on the side just fuming because he knew we were going to get hurt. And hell, probably me or Ralph probably did get hurt, but it was just crazy stuff like that, man, that you couldn't get. We love basketball because if we didn't, we would have been looking at each other and been like, man, what is this dude getting us to do?
I love it.
That's why we're all here, I guess.
All right, you go, Ralph.
I'm gonna hit each one of these guys real quick. Excuse me, with Bowles, he tried to say that I beat him pretty bad. He didn't tell you the year before that we came to his place. Bowles beat me by 30. I think it was something like 90 something. They were trying to bust the clock and get 100. He wore my behind out, and I asked for the game. I don't know what I was thinking. So I'm not gonna let him just get off with me. And then with Porsche, I remember when Porsche tore his ACL before I tore mine, and I kind of was in my senior year wearing a brace and so forth. And I remember we were playing pickup ball after the season was over with. And, the brace was just making me mad, and I wasn't playing well. And I can't use the exact words, of course, used, but basically he told me to take that brace off and start playing like a man. And I remember that I didn't wear the brace again after that. And, I just remember, he really got in, and not a lot of people said things to me a certain way. That's why I always appreciate Porsche. He was going to give it to me raw. And then with Colt was our angry guy. He was always funny to me because he was always mad about something on the court. And, I know he used that probably to fuel him as one of those Michael Jordan mind trick type things, but he was always mad about something.
That's true.
I love it.
It's true.
All right, Colt, you go ahead. What you got?
Ralph's not lying. I'll stick with crazy coaching stories because I know all of us remember this. Conference finals right before it, and our senior year, we had a drill that called champion drill, and you have to rotate, close down the ball, rotate around, take a charge, and then get up and dive on a loose ball. And, it's literally the day before the game or maybe even the morning of, I don't remember, but we're playing Maryville, who had worn us out for 3 years. And, we played them tough one time in the 3 years we've been there. But they beat us by like 25 and 30 earlier that year. And I remember Coach Cameron, we were doing the drill, and then he came out of nowhere, and like the assistant coaches were running the drill, and he came out of nowhere and dove for a loose ball. And dove at whoever was diving for the ball. He dove at it with them and fought him to get it. And he gets the loose ball and he stands up and he slams it down on the ground. and he walks off into the locker room because it was the last guy going, and we all walk off, or we're all going nuts with him. And Maryville, we were at Piedmont, so 2-tier level gym. Maryville was watching us do it, and they were like, "What the hell is wrong with these dudes?" And we came out that night or the next night, and they hit a 3 at the buzzer, or hit a 3 very late in the game to beat us. But it was one of those moments. Coach taped up. Remember, Coach Cameron taped his sweatpants up in the locker room, and we all touched them before we went out. And we played as very angry people that night, and gave everything they wanted. They ended up, going to the NCAA tournament and all that. But that was a great moment that I know all of us remember.
How about that? Great stories all around. We appreciate you guys coming on, sharing, talking through all of it. Ralph, any final words from you here as we kind of close out this episode of the podcast?
I appreciate you guys having me on and thinking enough of me to allow me to get on with these guys. Don't always get to talk to them too often, but, definitely a lot of great memories and miss these guys. And, we went through a lot down there. I know they all remember Black Tuesday. And
my God. Yeah.
We got a lot of great memories. Like Bo said, it's not all about the wins or losses, it's about the memories we built.
Yeah, exactly. Bowles, you got stuff to say to these two guys, or any final thoughts or stories?
I mean, it's crazy to think it's been over 20 years since we met each other, and the stuff that you share with these guys is stuff that never goes away. And I know Searle and CB, you feel the same way with guys you played with and coached with. And at the end of the day, man, that's what this whole thing is about. We can talk about all sorts of stuff, but the relationships you have with these guys, and I know these guys all helped shape me into the person I am today, whether it's the person, the coach, the father, whatever it is. And man, we had a good time. Had a good time with these dudes, and it's awesome to see them. It's great to see them in the same profession too. It's just it's an awesome feeling.
Even better, right? You work hard, you work your tail off, and you have a good time. Colt, how about you? What are your final thoughts here? I know we've lost Porsche somewhere on the golf course, but you can close us out here, Colt.
All right. Yeah, just echoing what Ralph said. Thank you for having me on. Means a lot to me to be on here with these guys. I think, I want to challenge Ralph and Daniel and I. We need to do this more often. It's when you have a best friend, or you have guys that you went through something with and you form relationships like we did. Cool part is I haven't talked to Ralph for maybe 15 years, man. And jump on here, and it's just like I was talking to him yesterday. So just love those guys, love getting to play with them, and really impressed and proud of the men that they've become and the men they helped me become.
I think closing it up before we do our closing. So one of the neat things is, I think when you're in coaching and you see guys go into coaching, it's kind of the family business. So you're almost like a dad whose son, took over the barbershop or whatever, or the pizza place or whatever. And that's kind of been neat, to see as a coach, but also to see other programs have it. And I can only imagine LaGrange College, not only the coaching staff at that time, but the college itself, knowing that 8 men played there and have taken what they learned from there, and they're still sharing the love of not only what they got from it, but the love of the sport. And that's awesome. I think it's a great story. We're going to do some more like this, because there's some other programs around that have some scenarios like this. And I just think it's neat, man. I appreciate you guys sharing with us and, coming on and just hanging out and telling stories. We probably could have told another 10 or 15. And if Bowles wouldn't have kept hitting the ball in the rough, we might have heard a couple of more good ones from him. But anyway, I thought it was good stuff. So you going to close us out, Searle?
Let's go. But hey, Ralph Denmark, Colt McDowell, Daniel Bowles, and Jeff Pourchier, thanks to our guests on the podcast today. Great stories from that 2001-2002 LaGrange basketball team with all these guys who got into coaching. Make sure you stay in touch with us on social media, our Instagram, Off Beaten Path Podcast, or our Twitter, Off Beaten Path _, and we'll post episodes. You can catch up on last episodes. Again, we appreciate you listening.
All right, and this is a show that's for those of you who want to coach, those of you who used to coach, those who are coaches, those who follow coaches and those who hire and fire coaches. We appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate y'all being on.
Thanks, guys.